Hello and welcome to the First Cinemas Fringes podcast. My name is Evan Poppleston and I'll be talking about the film It. It is an adaptation of a Stephen King novel which was also made into a TV miniseries in 1990. In the town of Derry in Maine, young Bill Denbrough, played by Jaden Labourher, makes a paper boat for his younger brother Georgie, played by Jackson Robert Scott. When the latter goes out in the middle of a rainstorm to sail it on the water rushing down the street, it soon ends up falling into a drain. When he tries to retrieve it, he is greeted by the sinister clown-like figure of Pennywise, played by Bill Skarsgård, who peers out from the slot. He talks to the boy, lulling him into a false sense of security before handing his boat back. It's too late. When Georgie sticks his arm out to retrieve the boat, it is prominently bitten off and he is dragged underground, never to be seen again. While the town is put on evening curfew, life goes on for Bill and his friends, the so-called Losers Club at school. They are bullied by the psychotic Henry, played by Nicholas Hamilton, and his buddies. However, their circle of friends soon expands as they are joined by the bookish loner Ben Hanscom, played by Jeremy Ray Taylor, as well as a delinquent girl named Beverly Marsh, played by Sophia Lillis, who has her own issues with her rather creepy father, and Mike Hanlon, played by Chosen Jacobs, who works in a rather unappealing job slaughtering animals to sell to the local butcher. They band together firstly to face off against the local bullies, secondly to investigate the large number of child disappearances in the town, and thirdly to deal with the terrifying supernatural attacks that Pennywise inflicts upon them. Although based on a Stephen King novel, it seems to have gained more of a following from the 1990 TV miniseries, which ended up becoming a cult favourite right at the end of the horror video rental heyday. This was within the then restrictive censorship standards and low-key production values that TV productions were invariably saddled with during these times, meaning that it had to rely on implication rather than gory prosthetics to convey horror. The general consensus was that the first half, which depicted the characters as children, was considered to be better than the second half, which leapt forward 27 years to show the characters facing Pennywise again as adults. It's the former part that this film focuses on. However, whereas the first section of the book was set in the late 1950s, this film is set during the late 1980s. This results in some affectionate period detail, homages to the BMX rides through suburbs, nostalgia of adolescent fantasy adventure movies from the time, and even one or two references to New Kids on the Block, a band who, quite frankly, aren't the best one to bring back from the period, but I digress. On the flip side, the grislier aspects of the story have been brought to life with a good deal more gore and a much larger effects budget than the TV series. The young child getting his arm bitten off during the opening sequence being a classic example. The result is an entertaining but rather odd mix of Stand By Me style coming of age story and a Nightmare on Elm Street style horror ride. In general, the coming of age character dramatics work a lot better than the horror sections. The main characters are well drawn and the cast of young adolescent actors does well to imbue them all with distinct personalities. In particular, Jaden Labourher is outstanding as the ever-stuttering yet indefatigably brave Bill, and Sophia Ellis as the plucky tomboy Beverly. While there's some seriously dark subject matter here, there's also a fair amount of humour, much of it courtesy of Film Wolfhard, who regularly steals scenes as the hilariously offhand and dirty-minded Richie. Andy Muschietti films it all with a genuine sense of flair, smoothly blending the various tonal shifts to tell a compelling story. It's a pity that I didn't find the horror sequences to be particularly scary. Admittedly, when I was in the cinema with a mostly young adult crowd, a number of them did jump out of their seats. Maybe it's a matter of me being hardened by extensive exposure over the years, but it felt like the filmmakers forgot the old maxim, less is more. The actors playing the supposedly terrifying villains of the story, which were Bill Skarsgård as Pennywise, Nicholas Hamilton as Henry, and Stephen Biggert as Beverly's father, give such heavy-handed performances that they come across as more laughable than menacing. The terror sequences may be technically slick, but they are such a relentless cacophony of noise, CJ-enhanced grotesqueries, and flashy jump edits that any impact they might have had is nullified. Saying boo to someone once can cause them to jump, but saying it over and over in quick succession just defeats the element of it coming as a shock. There are three isolated moments where Muschietti tempers the mayhem and delivers genuine chills. Firstly, a glimpse of a yellow-hooded little boy who darts unexpectedly in a dimly lit corridor ahead. Secondly, a bathroom that gets entirely drenched in deep crimson blood. And thirdly, a knife kill goaded on by Pennywise in the guise of a TV presenter. All three scenes use carefully controlled build-ups, harrowing gore and left-field surprises to function exactly how horror films should, but all too rarely do nowadays. Stephen King adaptations have been a mixed bag over the years, ranging from classics like The Shining, Stand By Me, Misery, and The Shawshank Redemption to disasters like Maximum Overdrive, Sleepwalkers, and the TV miniseries Tommyknockers. It, the movie, while an enjoyable effort, stands somewhere in between the two extremes. It's worth a look, but it's unlikely to give hardened horror fans sleepless nights.